What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. As always, please hit that subscribe button. As y'all know, it's right down there and it's free. That enables us to keep coming to you guys as often as possible with as many interviews as possible. So please hit that subscribe button, like our content, share it, talk about it, be about it, each one, teach one. And we appreciate your guys' support getting us this far. And of course, if you're so inclined, people always ask me, but hit us on that Cash App, Unique Access ENT. Now, today we have the honor and the privilege of being joined by Mikey D, the real Mikey D.
The real one, baby. Yes, sir. Pleasure to be here, man. I'm honored.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you, man. Very excited. Been following you since the 80s, since I first heard of you and knew who you were. And,
right.
So it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here coming through the Unique Access. So thank you for your time. Now, going back and kind of tracing your history to what I could kind of figure out a little bit was the Clientele Brothers.
Yeah.
So I know at least that was at least early in the game, if not your first stuff. But for you, you know, as we're trying to let people know about origins and learning stuff and everything, what drew you to what was going on in rap in the first place?
Well, what it was is I live in Laurelton, Queens. You know, it's a nice little suburb in Springfield Gardens, Queens. And I was raised by my grandparents, you know, and next door, there was a lady, she had grandchildren that lived in Harlem. So my boy, Derek Parks and Michael Parks, which I call D-Money and Mike Action, they used to come visit their grandmother in the summertime. And Mike Action was the big brother. Derek was the little brother that was my age. So one particular summer, he came through and he bought his brother's big boom box outside on the steps. Excuse me. And we were listening to this music. Like, this is the first time that I really heard rap. And it was Grandmaster Caz. It was Kumo D, you know, the Cold Crush, and it was just crazy. But anyway, you know, this was the first time that I got an earful of hip hop, and then I fell in love with it from that point on. So I got to give thanks to D-Money for bringing the tape from Harlem to Queens, because right after I heard that, I went next door, went upstairs, wrote my very first rhyme. My very first rhyme was Kim, and I mocked Caz's rhyme about Yvette, you know what I mean? And it was off to the races after that. Excuse me.
So right off the bat, what made you want to play off what Grandmaster Caz was doing?
It was his wit. The rhyme about Caz was a story, you know. It was a long time ago, and I can never forget. Got caught in the bed with the girl named Yvette. It was like his wit, his cadence, and it was new to my ears. You know what I mean? It was like, wow, he's telling a story and he's rhyming it over this beat. I fell in love with it. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do that after I heard that. And I believe the what Kumo D was spitting might have been the battle between him and Busy B. So my introduction to hip hop was a battle and storytelling. You see what I'm saying? So I was sold. I was already sold.
Well, I think, unfortunately for Caz, I think obviously more so than Kumo D, but unfortunately for Caz, of course, a lot of his stuff didn't make it to record, or by the time it did, it had evolved so much already. But I think it's important, since he is obviously one of the best rappers ever, that, like, for you, especially hearing him and me hearing him a little bit later through tapes and different stuff that I would hear, I was always just blown away, because like Kumo D, he could rap fast, he could rap slow, he could tell a story, he could stack his rhymes, he could do all this stuff. And I think that, you know, since he came, he might have been too early for the game, you know, as far as accolades.
He was dope, but we can't forget his material was on one of the first rap records. Remember, Big Bang Hank said all of Grandmaster Caz's rhymes. So technically he did, make it into that lane, But yeah, Grandmaster Caz was definitely ahead of his time. I mean, the rhymes that he was spitting back then, they stand the test of time. Like he could spit them right now, and the younger crowd would absolutely go crazy because they made so much sense and they were so, you know what I mean? It was like art. Plus, Caz can also DJ because he started out as a DJ. You know what I mean? So he's, yeah, exactly. So, and then, once I started following them and trying to be like them and learning about hip hop, all I could say is hip hop literally raised me, man. From the time I turned 13 to the grown man I am right now, I was raised by hip hop.
Wow. That's
a fact.
That's incredible. So being that you were in Queens and the tapes you were getting were from elsewhere, Bronx and other places, mm-hmm. How was it for you seeing it kind of migrate toward Queens and not being in the hub of it immediately?
Well, basically, it was already in Queens. I just hadn't been introduced to it yet because I'm that younger guy. You know what I mean? I'm like a second or third generation Queens MC. You know what I'm saying? There were guys before me, but I wasn't aware of them at this particular time because I had just gotten turned on to hip hop maybe in 80, 81. So, but at that time, like I said, I was young, so I was still chasing the little girls. I wasn't smoking cigarettes. I wasn't hanging out. My grandparents still wanted me in the house before the street lights came on and all of that. So I wasn't around it, but once I got my first taste of it and I wrote my first rhyme, and the next morning I came downstairs and my Nana, she was the first person I said the rhyme to. She loved it. So I was like, I got something here, because she didn't know what it was either. Then I told D Money and them the rhyme and they loved it. After that, it was off to the races. And then I wanted to learn more about this culture. You know what I mean? I know the rappers who inspired me to start, but I want to know more now, So I started seeking information, man, and I started getting it. I'm glad I did. I started doing research. Well,
we had the same experience, except I didn't get into rhyming because I was just trying to figure out everything I could. Because like you, I had no idea there was so much that was out there already when I started learning about it. So for you, what was your process? How did you go about finding stuff?
Well, most of it presented itself to me because I was so curious and competitive at the same time that it just started presenting itself. Because, my boy D Money, the same person that introduced me to hip hop, once he did that and I started writing rhymes, we formed a little group. So it was D Money, myself, and Little B. That's when I came up with Playboy Mikey D. Then you had Lovable Little B, and you had Ever Loving Kid Ice, and we were the Grandmaster 3 MCs. So we started doing routines. We were like emulating the Force MCs at the time. Before they became the Force MDs, they were the Force MCs, and these were the first guys that we actually heard that can hold a note and also rap at the same time, because Cold Crush, they were harmonizing and all of that stuff, but they couldn't hold the note like the Force MCs, So we tried to get in that bag. So we was doing all of that, and we were pretty dope. So we started making cassette tapes, and the cassette started circulating throughout the neighborhood. But then one day, Johnny Quest and me, we made a tape together. It was him DJing and me rapping. And there was a group in Lawton called the Rappamatical Five. One of the lead rappers, his name was Private Eye. Private Eye had a little 4-track studio in his house. See, we weren't we didn't know what studio recordings were about at this time because we were just making cassettes and Johnny Quest Sun Porch, you know what I mean? Turntables and all of that. But this guy had a drum machine. He had a 4-track recorder, the microphone set up, and it was just crazy. So we did this cassette called Here's Johnny. So it was our first studio recording. And that tape, when I say that tape, if it would have been a record, it would have went gold. But it was a tape that circulated throughout Queens, you know what I mean? And that is what gained our notoriety. So now people are starting to recognize who we are. Like I said, I also heard Kumo D first, so I was competitive because I could battle too. You know what I mean? And this is pre 40 ounces. You know what I mean? So basically, the information started presenting itself because more and more tapes were, going through each other's hands. And D Money, he was really getting into hip hop in Harlem, and he was old enough now to go to these spots with his brother. You know what I mean? So he was bringing all of the information back, and plus we doing our research, and plus we out there. It was crazy. It was crazy. So I was living it. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people Google it. I was actually living it. You know?
Now that's amazing. So then how and when did the Clientele Brothers and then the LL connection start?
Well, I was basically going from group to group to group to group. And this is before I realized that I would be better off as a solo artist. So, I tried many different groups. It was started with the Grandmaster 3, then it was the LA Rap Masters, which stands for Laurelton, and there was about 16 of us. This is before Wu-Tang and all of that, before records were even coming out. We were doing this. So it was the LA Rap Masters, and then it was the Phenomenal 4, and then it was the Money Making 3 after the LA Rap Masters. Then it was the Phenomenal 4. While I was down with the Phenomenal 4, me and my boy Mark Miller, we used to always be together, and we used to rap this, that, and the other. And one day, Eddie OJ, who's the lead rapper of the Clientele Brothers. Now, mind you, the Clientele Brothers were the equivalent in Queens to Cold Crush in the Bronx. So these guys were basically, it was Rapomatical 5, Professional 5, and the Clientele Brothers. They were Laurelton, Queens rap groups that were basically established. Like these guys had the suits, the dance steps. They were doing big gigs at like the tennis courts, and they weren't just making cassette tapes. They were out there doing gigs. So they were big to us. These were guys that we used to look up to, like, wow, we want to be like them someday. And one day, Eddie OJ offered me and Johnny Quest an opportunity to come to one of their rehearsals. Now, these guys really rehearsed. You know what I mean? We just freestyled and was spontaneous with it. These guys rehearsed their steps, the routines and all of that. So we were down in the basement at Mr. Jean's house, and they let us do a little something. But we didn't realize they were really auditioning us. You know what I mean? So after we finished rapping and all of that with them, they told us that we were the new members of the Clientele Brothers. Man, you talk about mind blown. Like, my mind was blown because everybody in Queens knew who the Clientele Brothers were. You know what I mean? Now, I'm this little guy, and I'm down with them because remember, they're a generation before me. I'm from the new generation, but I'm mad young. I'm still able to get on punishment and all of that stuff. I had to behave if I wanted to perform with them. And when these guys would perform on a Wednesday or something like that, my grandfather had to come with us, you know what I mean? But luckily he liked to party himself back then. But so the Clientele Brothers, that was my introduction to professionalism in the game. You know what I mean? Like, really disciplining myself, preparing, and instead of just going in there freestyling. That's where I also found my identity, because like my cadence, my attitude, my stage presence is a combination of Will Seville from the Clientele Brothers, and Eddie OJ of the Clientele Brothers. That's me right there. You know, with the spirit of Grandmaster Caz and Mo D. That there you have it. That's me. You know what I mean?
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
It would be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Yo MTV back with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.